until maybe there's another function, which is okay. But in one of the, if you have a rundown of what we've been going through, the final session says closing remarks, and then from media focus, then 4:30 tea break. It also puts there networking and departure at leisure. I think, Esther, you're the one who asked me whether this place is haram or not haram. Instead of just asking me, is there a bar or not? But you can live at leisure, but was that me? Sorry about that. But yes, there we are. Let's just wrap this. You can leave at leisure later on when we finish. Our next sessions come through with building resilience, how journalists are overcoming challenges in a post-COVID world. Without wasting any time, I do believe our without wasting time, I would like to just make sure that our panelists come through so that we can be able to catch up with time. Building resilience, how journalists are overcoming challenges in post-COVID world. We discussed a lot about COVID, and I'm sure there are certain individuals that have been able to make it through. And to discuss this, please let us welcome Prosi Kawala. The last table is not clapping, but before we went for food, you were all like clapping, like to please everyone here. But thank you. And also, please, let's do welcome Clement Aluma from West Nile Web. He's online. He's still the other side. I don't think. But Clement Aluma, West Nile Web, probably actually is likely to be online as I recall. But because it's in West Nile, it requires a quick connection. Hope you can help me catch up with that. Good luck, Musinguzi. Please, let's welcome Good luck, Musinguzi. Chigezi News. You know that comes with fire, right? But it's good to have you. You can choose a seat of your choice. Probably you should sit there. Smile racho yagala kwekwe. Oba racho yagala kwekukutirizaawo. Kiri wali entebe zonna ziri eri nkalu. But it's good to have you here. And our subject, as I mentioned, this as well, we should make this actually an interactive session for reasons being, all of us were affected by COVID. As being journalists and media practitioners, remember, we are talking about navigating obstacles in Uganda's journalism. So how did we navigate through this? How did we get to the end of it all? What did we actually get out of the entire situation? And even then, as things are going to go back almost to normal, will they be normal per se? That is what we're going to be discussing. Okay, I will start off, they normally say ladies first, but I do recall there was a presentation that comes from Good luck Musinguzi, that is from Chigezi News. And let's start up with that. And as we try getting as well Clement Aluma from West Nile. Mr. Musinguzi, thanks very much. And let's hear from you.
Thank you very much. I'm called Musinguzi Good luck. I come from Kabale, and I own a media company called Chigezi News Agency Limited. As the topic says, how are journalists overcoming challenges in the post-COVID world? I wanted to first ask one or two questions for everyone out there. Who is covering our space? When COVID came, I realized that musicians, politicians have covered a bigger space, that a journalist or a media practitioner today, while you think you have the numbers, like they've been, the other speakers talked about the numbers that can help you get business, but I found out that the journalist has wanted to hide behind the brands or the bigger brands. I know yesterday I talked about smaller brands and someone described it differently, but I also recognize there are smaller brands. So I wanted to encourage journalists out there that please try and cover this space. Don't let musicians have bigger numbers. Don't let politicians have bigger numbers. Because I can tell you today, if I have an advert to put online, most likely, I don't know which Ugandan journalist has a following of like 1 million, both on Facebook and Twitter. Do you know anyone? But yet we know there are musicians and politicians who are out there. So the other question, when COVID came, people were chased out of work. And as Jan and others said, this past year, online media houses have increased. Then I ask a question. Are they just coming on, are they registering as companies? Sarah said she registered her company. So when you register a company, that's when you qualify. It's a legal aspect that you must register. So in order for you to get a business, another thing comes, taxes. Do we pay taxes? If you talk to the tax experts, for example, if you were invited here and you are given more than 100,000 shillings, they would require you to have a TIN number. Because where we are going, you don't just pay people money, but you have also to pay tax. So the media companies, the online media companies, need to register with URSB, go to URA, you get a personal TIN, but you also get a TIN for the company. Now from there, you go and compete for business. So if Monitor or NMG, New Vision, and all these others are competing for business, you also have an opportunity. But there's no way you will say, I am online, I'm doing my online business or stories, but you don't want to make money. And the other thing I never felt, which never came in this session or from yesterday, I remember when I was working with Monitor and New Vision, because we are up country, they would train us also to look for adverts as journalists. Because they would say, yes, you are writing stories for the company. At the end of the day, you want a salary or payment. But where do we get the money? So, meaning, when you are there, also have an eye of looking for business. So the young journalists or the media people who are transiting from either print or broadcast, and you are starting online, please also have an eye of making money. Because if you want to survive as they have asked us to discuss how journalists are overcoming challenges, we must look at the legal regime. Make sure that your papers are there. So I have seen, the other thing I wanted to talk about is us being innovative as writers. At Overlunch, we talked with some people. You find most of us either are running for the hard news, but if we are survivors individuals, for example, if you're in West Nile, what makes West Nile so special? That me, the person who is in central Uganda or western Uganda, I should be able to look for you and maybe use, if it's an organization, maybe I put adverts on your website because you have mapped your area and you have a niche. Then there are also other things. There's something I want to talk about. If we want to survive, let us stop this issue of breaking news. It is also going to break you. Because we were talking about prematures, the children who are born when they are not of age of the month. We have had people here who are making machines. There's a young man who finished P7, went to the US. He has constructed a facility that can be able to take even 100 children. And recently he won a world record. But you find some of those stories are somewhere
But
hidden.
good luck, just 1 second. He constructed a machine, they're making babies.
No, that's where the premature babies.
You mean that they are manufacturing incubators?
Incubators, but here in Uganda.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, the way you had put it as like, hey, now we don't have to go through dating.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but what I'm saying is that there are opportunities for us to write stories that are not in the normal media or the traditional media. Then there's what they call ghostwriting. There are people who are willing to pay you to write. They give you ideas. They want you to put them in a journalistic way, and they're able to pay. So you can advertise yourself either on your social media, Twitter, Facebook, in quotes is like closed. So, but I have seen Twitter grow. So what are you doing? So meaning we need to look at, we need to diversify. We need to have skills that will help us survive. Lastly, I was listening to Barack Obama. He was addressing young people during COVID. So he said, your generation will have to grow faster than the other generations. COVID has given an opportunity for all of us to start at the same base. It affected everyone. So if you go to any company or anyone and you say, I was affected by COVID, then they say, even me, I was affected. Actually, if you go to economics, they say if a country goes to double-digit inflation, it takes 10 years to go back where you were if you took it back to single digit. So imagine our country has been closed for 2 years. For me, I am putting this at 100 years backwards. So meaning, while it's a challenge that we were affected by COVID, but we still also have another opportunity that all of us, we were affected equally. So we can all rise if we choose, as Barack Obama said, as our generation, grow faster. We should avoid saying, we used to do it this way. We used to do it that way. Now we have to do it the way it is. Go in, go fight for the adverts with the big boys and the big girls, NBS and all these ones. Because me, I've tried to do it, and I can tell you people will listen to you as long as you have the team, you have those rigor regimes. But the 60% of the online media you are talking about, I don't know if people will be able to tell us whether they are doing those things, whether the legal aspect has been worked on, so that they can be able to tap in the money. Thanks very much.
Well, the good thing, a round of applause for good luck. The good thing, all those individuals are still here, so they should be able to tell us. I think is the biggest point that is putting across that you might be out there struggling and putting together your outlet, yet at the end of the day, it's not going to go anywhere. If anyone wants to advertise with you, they're going to ask for all the legal documents. And if you don't have them, you'll be stopped at the door. And well, let's go to the lady. Thanks very much for joining us, Prosi Kawala. And what does CMCOD?
SEMCOD.
SEMCOD.
Yeah, SEMCOD is Center for Media Literacy and Community Development. It's a non-government organization, media organization that works on media literacy issues, and we focus mostly on building the skills of young people to be able to understand media and to use it constructively. but also raise their community voices.
That's amazing. And we've gone through a period of COVID, and you clearly can look at our subject, building resilience, how journalists are overcoming challenges in a post-COVID world. In the first place, how were you affected?
Most of our work is based on community mobilizing. So even when we train young people to use media, at the end of the day, we are deploying these young people within communities to be able to talk about community issues, to amplify community voices. So you can imagine that when COVID struck, we were actually cut off. We couldn't bring people together because of the SOPs. There were no gatherings, so we needed to really rethink how best we could reach these communities. We also had a good number of young people who are working within their communities, reporting issues that concern these communities. And COVID came, it was one of them. There was little information when COVID first came in, and the communities looked at these young people as the people who had answers. If they want to know anything about COVID, they ran to a young person who works as a community reporter to ask them. And then it meant they ran back to us also to find out what more information we had that would help these communities. So it was kind of a cycle. We also work in partnership with local radio stations. So it was kind of like, you know, something that just rotates around. We are all looking for information. There was a little when COVID came in, even from legacy media itself. So there were a lot of struggles. But also even to get the equipment alone, the sanitizers, for example, we had now to, those are budgets that we never had as an organization. But then we had to sit with also our partners that we were working with and change around the way we were doing things so that we could now attend to the most pressing needs, first of the community reporters and also our radio partners.
Now, here we hear that COVID is almost going away. Are you considering going back to the same options that you were using traditionally before COVID? Because I do believe there are certain patterns that you adopted that seem to be working for you. Probably there's some work that you are doing remotely. When COVID comes through, are you going to be abandoning some of the opportunities that you had created to go back to how things used to be, or you're just going to move forward?
We shall not cut anything, but we've only learned to integrate some aspects of the way we do our work. But also if COVID goes away, you know, with communities, there's a strong sense of feeling when people come together. We still believe that we shall still bring people together, but work with the standard operating procedures. Where there is social distancing, we shall encourage that because we're already doing that even now. We've had some physical trainings already and also some community dialogues, but telling people what they have to do. Wear your mask, sanitize, keep social distance, so we shall do that. But then we also learned to do certain things in a different way. For example, when it came to community dialogues in the heat of COVID, when we couldn't bring people together in large numbers, we used the radio station because those are our strong partners in our work. And we got people go to the radio station in a talk show. But when it came to community, we employed our community reporters to stay where they were, but ask 5 or 6 of their neighbors to sit around a small radio station. So I remember that that time there was a lot of scientific. We also termed our dialogues scientific dialogues. So we did the scientific dialogues in that way, that one community reporter had 5, 6, or 7 other people seated with them with a small radio set and a phone. So the radio was to help us listening to the program that was going on, and we used a phone to also call in to contribute to the discussions because the people needed these discussions so badly. They needed information, they had questions that required feedback. And for them to just sit locked up in their communities without answers was really a very, I don't know, depressing. It was more depressing than the COVID itself. That you know something bad has come, but you even don't know what to do about it. So we did that, and it helped. That is one of the things that we think we can continue to do. Because then people don't need to gather in large gatherings all the time when there is something like that. Before COVID, we hadn't thought of it. So we think it's something good that came up, that we try to innovate around how we can still talk to our people wherever they are and still pass on the information.
Now, earlier when Good Luck was submitting, I think he talked about advertorial, whereby as a journalist you can still step into looking out for adverts and the like. I think his point was clear. It was a financial aspect and how you can be able to put some money even after we go through COVID. So he taught us that probably as a journalist or a reporter, when you go out there to get a story, what else can you get? And that could be business. So the financial bit of every step that we take, amidst either COVID or post-COVID, is very, very important. How were you affected financially? And how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, financially, as a non-profit, we rely on partners and donors. And
so the money was still coming?
The money stopped somewhere. Some of it came, but also it was cut down. Yeah, and that meant, of course, a lot of things also, a lot of activities also being put on a standstill. Yeah. But those are things that now you begin to think about and say, okay, I mean, we had a lot of discussions when this came in. If the partners got affected and probably the funding stopped, what then happens? So, and this is also a conversation we had been having still with our partner radio stations, because then we say, okay, we are bringing in this program, I mean, the community reporters. The good thing also, apart from the partners, is that our community, we don't pay the community reporters. They work as volunteers. You know, they work as volunteers. So when it came to COVID, it wasn't that we were cut down on money to pay them, but we only had to devise ways of making sure they were protected enough to continue to do their work. What got affected was now like the organizational, you know, programming staff and so on, operational costs. Yeah, but the rest was okay.
Well, I'm inviting Mr. Lubura Henry to join us as well at the forefront. For reasons, Mr. I beg your pardon, Clement Aluma, West Nile, Webb won't be joining us. He's attending a burial. You don't want to clap for him as he comes? What did you do at the dining area? But it's good to have you, Henry. Thanks for joining us. Clement wouldn't join us for reasons he has some development arrangement he's attending to. Here we are. I'll be getting back to that, and I'll be grateful if someone else as well will be able to share their post experience. The subject remains building resilience, more so how journalists are overcoming challenges in a post-COVID world. So I'll be opening the floor in a nutshell. Henry, as you jump in, I won't even let you rest because you don't have to. You've been resting almost the entire day. You understand the subject quite very well. Let's first, in the first place, let's look at your specialty. What do you do best, and who do you do it with?
Well, my name is Henry Lubulu. I work at the Chief Executive or the team leader of the Entebbe Post. It's an online media platform. It is based in Entebbe and captures the news around the country and the world in the eyes of the people of Entebbe and the people who use the gateway called Entebbe Airport. Previously, I worked as a correspondent for NTV and the Daily Monitor, and I'm still working. So,
I'm going to ask, what did you do? But still, as a journalist, I do believe there is need for you to put a foot somewhere in the wave of COVID. Also, as it still exists, because, I mean, January is very far. You never know when a press conference is called and things are reversed. So how are you overcoming the challenges? How are you rebuilding self, more so as an individual, and also the organization or media outlet of Entebbe Entebbe Post. How are you being able to pick up on the two factors that I've mentioned?
Now, when COVID came in, being people based within the area of the Entebbe area, the gateway where most people who are coming from abroad are coming into the country, and where we have the Uganda Virus Research Institute and places like the Entebbe Regional Referral Hospital, all of us were frightened at first. We didn't know what is coming to us and what is going to take place. All of a sudden, the president shut down the country, and then we had our first case of COVID-19. We looked out for measures to have ourselves operating in a situation which we don't understand, and how to see ourselves coping up with what is taking place within the country. First and foremost, we had to cut off part of our staff, and we are about 8 people working on this online media platform, and had to cut it to a half. The security guys within the area wouldn't allow us move from one place to another, and then we could also not come to office with the fear we had of not knowing what is taking place within the country. And as we read and as we did all the work we are doing, we had to, first of all, cut off the staff, and we could not operate at first quite well with half capacity. 2 editors on the table and then 2 reporters who had to go and work. It would be very difficult for us. And then as an organization which is just starting, at the time we had an organization vehicle which would move people from one place to another, and yet no one would have a clearance to move on a border. You can't foot from one place to another, so the budgets had to increase, and you had to facilitate people from one place to move from one place to another, getting to the isolation center, getting to the Virus Research Institute, getting to the airport to cover all the events that are taking place, especially when they're happening within Entebbe. Everything literally happened within Entebbe. Now, first of all, we are constrained. What we did is that we had to look out for the funders we do have. One of our funders has always been with us for quite a long period of time and had to come in, increase what he was giving us, and just to cater for our bills, as we also compensate for what he gives us in advertising and content generation for the company. So it was basically something that came abruptly. We didn't know what to do, but luckily enough, we survived through the engagements we had with the different advertisers, the people who had money, and the government of Uganda. Some of the people in the government of Uganda had to help us, like the RDC in Entebbe had to come up with contingency measures that would help us move around the area with temporary permits, and also sometimes we would get transport from the different people that we're working with.
Well, I think it's sometimes I want to call you good luck, Jonathan, but good luck, you're the one that mentioned extraordinary ideas. You used the word extraordinary ideas, which meant that, like for some media houses, what happened was they started improvising means on how to make sure that they remain operational. Some created dormitories, and then some improvised cooking areas, bathrooms, which some makeshift media houses never had. About extraordinary ideas. Amidst this, what extraordinary ideas came through, especially in line with your own outlet?
Thank you very much. One thing I thought about was the upcountry reporters. When I had, or when it was evident that people were being laid off, I started calling a few of my friends, and I know some of them are online. I started working with some people in West Nile and in other places. I had an opportunity. I could get some little money through social media. But at one point, someone asked me a question: whom do you work with? But because here in the center, people were already a bit established, I started looking out for people in the upcountry. And with that, I started telling them that you need to brand yourselves. You have spaces, you have your own networks. So I said, those who have brands, I'm ready to collaborate. And yesterday, Sarah and others talked about collaboration. And actually, yesterday, when I was talking to these friends of ours from Entebbe Post, I said I've been following Entebbe Post all the time. And I've been looking for the owners.
Trying to get their news.
No, okay, either way.
Thanks for being honest.
I've been looking for them to do a collaboration. So one of the super ideas was collaborate with people where they are. They have spaces, they have networks. And with those networks, if we work on if we continue, we'll be able to raise some money. Because you can't believe, someone might be in Palisa, he knows someone in an organization or in a company that gives adverts. So, but when he calls that person, you who is here in the center, you might be able to get an advert, not because of your initiative, but because of the network and the collaboration. So currently I have around 200 journalists I'm networking with. And we work on different stories. And we think even post-COVID, we need to push it and we shouldn't go backwards. Because we know another pandemic could come, another bigger problem could come. There's something I want to talk about, mental health. As we go post-COVID, we need to look at our mental health as journalists. We have been so stressed. Some are angry. You can see it in what they write. But also when you start around that, you will see that you need some peace of mind in order to move. For example, I had to reduce my uptake of television and concentrate on my work. But this, when you go to the medical side, even the people who are getting some non-communicable diseases, they come as a result of people being so stressed and going through handling challenges that they can't. So the media, I hope Jan and Ruth and the team can also look at how do they train us to go to handle mental health. It's one aspect that will affect us because people are going, the world is going to, okay, Uganda is going to be opened. You are going to think things are the same. Things are not going to be the same. So when you are walking on these streets, maybe you are hungry, you can't afford transport. Who is talking to you? So we don't want to see people die and without them, thinking about mental health, but also networking. Thank you very much.
That is very good. Thank you very much for that particular contribution. As before we get back to you, Prosi, in the videos online, thank you very much for being part of us. Please continue viewing. And of our social media content, hashtag remains Uganda Media Week 21, Media Week 21, Media Matters UG. Those are 3 different hashtags. On YouTube, we are running live. Look out for Media Focus on Africa. Facebook, the same, Media Focus on Africa. And Twitter, MFA Uganda. We'll be grateful hearing from you. Anyone with any particular experience, if you're ready to share that, of what exactly has happened in your own house or your own backyard. How did you go about that? And how have you been able, in one way or the other, to patch up those particular situations? I am coming to you briefly, but in the meantime, Prosi, you talked about working with young people. Did they feel like they're losing out something? Did they feel like something is getting away from them? Because you talked about mental health. It is something that affects you. Like sometimes you wake up and your boss tells you, you go home, I'll call you. You start thinking, oh my God, this is the end of it all. This is where I'm going to become jobless. This is where I'll never earn any more money, or this is where I'll never learn anymore. But even then, what approach did you take to reach out to them when it comes to how they should remain stable, understanding that whatever they were receiving is still available?
Okay, what we've learned working with young people is that they need a lot of mentorship, they need encouragement, and especially if they are pursuing things that they are passionate about, they really need a little push. And then they will carry on. And I think that's the resilience we are talking about. So for the young people we are working with, actually we have a network of about 100 young people that we've trained around the country in about 5 districts in Uganda. So when we talk about COVID, what it took us was to explain the issues and the way things are evolving, but also to offer trainings, more trainings. Because when now COVID came and things really changed around, we realized that there was more skilling that is required for young people to be able to keep on, especially when it came to training. It meant that if one community reporter had been jumping on a motorcycle taxi to go to their nearest radio station, this time they had to sit back home and then find ways of communication, which was now making sure that we provide the digital skills that were required. And once they have this, it means that they're ready to face the world, to face the challenges that come on. Young people only get a little bit confused or discouraged if they do not see the future. But I think it's about sitting them down, encouraging them on what they love to do, and then giving them the basics on how to push on. In that way, we don't see them losing hope.
Mr. Alvura, Henry, you actually mentioned something. You went about something about some people staying at home, some people almost being laid off. I must have missed that point in particular, where some people actually told to stay at home. Did some people lose their jobs?
They did not lose jobs, but we asked them to stay at home because we had to operate at half capacity.
Cuts?
We wouldn't cut their pay because I don't want to say we were so much affected with the financing, but we were so much affected with the operations. Because in an office, no one would, the security at the entrance of the building, of our office, they wouldn't allow all of us to get into the building at a go because they knew all of us, and we wouldn't get up to the second floor just to get there. About 8 people in an office, which is about 2 rooms. So they had to allow half the capacity of the people, and the rest would remain home. And that meant the people who are remaining home would not work. The only 4 people who are in office would work. And at the same time, we would not announce that we are going to cut their pay. As the 2 managers, we said, no, we're not going to cut anyone's pay only because no one has cut our income. But at the same time, we were constrained. So we had to look out for mitigation measures where we would even hire a vehicle and start moving around with the different people even the other journalists within the area would come out and also use a vehicle. But what was funny is that even those who would come to office, because they feared of the contraction of COVID-19, they had started coming with hubs.
Hubs?
Yes, the local hubs.
Yes,
local
they are also local hubs. Which hubs?
Yeah, first of all, they had started coming with marijuana in office. And some had started coming with things, things like echfumfumu.
Why don't you just call it greens once and for all? About vegetables.
Now, we're in a situation where we didn't know what people are doing. But they are coming with all this medication, and they are thinking that it's part of their prevention mechanisms from contracting COVID-19. We felt threatened for a while, me and Adude. But at the same time, we had to also leave people do things the way they would understand for as long as they would regulate them and ask them not to go far beyond what we're supposed to do.
Interesting. For any questions or sharing of your experience, the floor is open right now. I think Milton put up his hand before you did. I noticed that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to comment the 2 gentlemen and a lady before us. Mine is not actually a question, but I want to give a compliment or a supplement basing on the experience me and my team at Great Lakes Center for Strategic Media Studies and TND News face actually pre and post-COVID. What we have seen over the last 1 year or so is that COVID came with immense benefit, because before COVID, we were operating and we also had some challenges, which challenges we were trying to gradually sort them out. But when COVID came, it gave us a platform. It gave us a mileage. People were able to recognize us for the stories we were publishing, especially on health and COVID. Now, we were able to see people demanding for content in the areas of health and vaccine. People were actually sending us questions, sending us feedback, sending us inquiry that we want to know where and when are we going to get the vaccine, where are we going to get vaccinated, and those kind of things. And of course, it's also important to share with my colleagues and everyone here is that the online platform or the online newspapers that many of us are now actually focusing on is that we can achieve a lot. If you want to make money, you will make money. If you want to make people know what is happening locally, internationally, and nationally, you have the platform to do that. So we also saw the revenue growth. And for the last 4 months, we have seen our revenue from Google, like the AdSense and all that. Our revenue has consistently increased over the last 4 months. So that means people visit the website, people.
So actually, you guys have been successful post-COVID. There is no actually reason for you to maybe to be worried. Like, if at all your income is increasing.
We also have worries because alongside that, we also have challenges, which is actually still going on. So we were affected in one way or another. But now when it comes to the success that I'm trying to share here is that the revenue increase, and we were also able to get some advertisement from local people and of course government. Then it's strange, and also I can't say it's a unique experience that before COVID, I think people didn't want to associate themselves with TND News, especially the reporters. People were like, because we didn't have money to pay. Now, the few people who were working with were able to understand when you tell them things are like this. But from the beginning of this year up to now, we have seen more than 10 people expressing interest to work with us. And this is something we are doing, and we feel happy that people is now understanding that I think there's somewhere we can grow together. And we need to give people platforms where they can share their ideas, where they can share their contents, because that's only one way we are going to grow together. Yesterday I was sharing with Noah what we need to do, because one, many people believe that when you start an organization or a company, that should be yours. I told him, whatever I do, whether I started with you, whether I started on my own, it's not mine. It's a public good. So this would be actually, because that way you are letting people to know that you have the publication, which is not yours. You are just actually managing it. But you should be able to let them know or have trust in you that I have a share in the publication. So that way you are building a reputation, you are making them to be your ambassadors, so that in good and hard situations, they are the people who will recommend you to people that can come and help. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that submission. I think we should clap for him. It's a good thing to share knowledge. Mango.
I think we were affected differently as journalists, as even media houses. There are some journalists who were laid off. There were some journalists who were told to operate from home, and they had never worked from home. But there are also a number of media houses in Kampala here that closed, like Record FM where I was working. So we closed. That means majority of my colleagues lost jobs. So we were completely affected differently. But during this, it gave us a learning process. And we managed to, collect together and then started a new form, which I think is still on. That one, that we are now more coordinated than before. During the lockdown, I was in Kampala. I saw journalists jumping in one car. Maybe it is NTV, NBS reporter would jump on that car, they drop that person, and then you proceed. So we began working together as foot soldiers. The other thing is that we're sharing tips. For those colleagues who are now home, he's not working, we would call and say, hey, Mango, nina katipu kanwekali, go to such and such a place, because for her or him is not in the field, then we would share these tips. So somehow it helped us to continue moving and working with those colleagues. And let's be sincere, there is peaking. So someone will still call back and say, mwana, najeyo mutwalo na yetanu zizino. So we remained living in that situation. So at least it made us work together, and there is now more unity that I still believe that after COVID, we shall be still working together as a team. The other thing is that it introduced us to new forms. People began now